It looked like just another post. A rooftop view, a glass of red wine, that signature smile her followers couldn't scroll past. Madison Turner, one of America's top wellness influencers, had just uploaded a perfectly filtered selfie from the 39th floor of the Aldridge Hotel. Her caption? New energy. Big things tomorrow. 3 hours later, she was dead. The headlines were instant. Influencer found dead in hotel room. Suicide suspected. Fans in shock. But what no one noticed, not the police, not the press, not even her fans, was the detail hidden in the frame. Zoom in. Behind her. A second figure. A shadow. Motionless. Watching. The door was locked from the inside. There were no fingerprints. Her phone had been factory reset. And the hotel security footage between 11:30 and midnight? Conveniently deleted. By the time the CIA, the crime investigation agency, was brought in, the story had already gone viral. Comment sections flooded. Brands released statements. And yet, no one was asking the real question. Who was in that room with her? And what were they trying to erase? Because this isn't just a story. This is real. We are talking about the suspicious death of a 26-year-old U.S. citizen, an influencer whose final photo may have captured her killer. And the moment Agent Collins saw the case file, he knew. This wasn't a tragedy. This wasn't fame gone too far. This was a takedown. So grab your popcorn, because we are talking about a cover-up so calculated, so clean, so digital. Even the killer thought they got away with it. They were wrong. The hotel suite looked like a product shoot. No signs of forced entry. No broken furniture. No blood spatter. No screaming neighbors. Just silence. A half-full wine glass tipped over on the coffee table. 2 lipstick stains. One her signature nude. The other, a deep plum red. The room smelled faintly of roses and citrus. A candle had burned out hours before. And then there was her necklace. Delicate. Rose gold. Always worn in her posts. Now placed gently beside the bed, like someone wanted it found. To anyone else, it looked like a tragic night. An influencer, alone at the peak of her career, taking her own life behind a locked door. But Agent Collins wasn't buying it. Because this wasn't grief. This was arrangement. The hotel claimed Madison entered alone. Security footage? Gone. The hotel's tech team said it was corrupted. Of course it was. But what they didn't expect was that the CIA brought their own digital forensics unit. And when they examined the door sensor logs, something didn't add up. Only 2 entries had been registered that night. One at 11:36 p.m. and one exit at 12:08 a.m. Exactly 32 minutes apart. No alarm triggered. No secondary card swipe. Whoever entered knew what they were doing. And the name tied to the digital key card? Grace Howard. A name not connected to any official booking at the Aldridge Hotel. No ID, no payment trail, no phone number. But in the CIA's internal case history, that alias lit up. Flagged in a cold case out of Denver from 2 years earlier. Another influencer. Another locked-door death. Another PR statement gone viral before the autopsy was even completed. That victim's phone had also been factory reset. That case had gone unsolved. Until now. Because whoever Grace Howard was, she wasn't just a visitor. She was a professional. She knew how to stay off camera. She knew what evidence to destroy. And most importantly, she knew how to leave without leaving a trace. But she missed something, because while the main surveillance system had been erased, the elevator's maintenance backup system had been quietly auto-syncing to the hotel's central server, and no one thought to delete that. Not yet. Agent Collins leaned in. "There's always a second angle," he muttered. He was right. Because that backup feed would show them the shadow no one else could see. The woman in the hoodie. The time. she arrived, and what she was carrying when she left. Madison Turner never walked out of that room, but someone else did, and that someone was about to make the mistake of thinking they got away with it. As the CIA processed the Aldridge Hotel crime scene, one question began circling like a storm cloud. Who wanted Madison Turner gone? And why now? To answer that, Agent Collins turned, not to forensics, but to her past. Because Madison wasn't just a content creator, she was a disruptor. Over the past year, she'd dropped 3 major brand partnerships. Not quietly. She called out toxic work cultures, exposed exploitative contracts, and once even hinted, without naming names, that a certain CEO had inappropriate access to his influencers. That post was deleted 20 minutes after going live, but a screenshot lived on. Of course it did. CIA analysts began to construct a list. 3 names rose to the top. Landon Pierce, her ex-boyfriend, a wellness entrepreneur, charismatic, photogenic, but behind the scenes, volatile. The two had split 6 months earlier, publicly. But privately, Madison had filed a civil restraining order citing harassment, leaked photos, and emotional threats. Her last message to him: "If you come near me again, I'll leak everything." He never responded. But geolocation data put his phone 4 blocks away from the Aldridge the night Madison died. When CIA agents visited him, he said all the right things: grief, shock, sadness. He even shed a tear on cue. But his phone had been factory reset too. That same night. Coincidence? Agent Ramirez didn't think so. Next was Tyler Grant, CEO of Elixir Skincare. This wasn't just business. Madison had been the face of Elixir's 10 Million Youth campaign. She was set to renew for another year, until she pulled out last minute. Privately, she told friends she saw something she couldn't unsee. That something had to do with a private trip Tyler arranged for brand ambassadors to an estate in Colorado. She never spoke publicly about it. But her manager said she returned shaken, silent, and ready to cut all ties. Tyler's public statement after her death? Polished, heartfelt, sympathetic. But it was released 17 minutes after her death hit the newswires. Prepared in advance? The CIA thought so. And then, there was the ghost in the system. Melissa Crane, a crisis handler, known in back channels, no public bio, no online presence. But her name, Melissa Crane, was tied to the alias Grace Howard from the Denver case. CIA intel linked her to at least 4 influencer meltdowns over the last 3 years. All of them ended the same way. Evidence gone. Brand reputation preserved. Victims silenced. She was what people in the industry called the cleaner. And Madison? She was the one influencer who had enough proof and enough nerve to finally bring that entire ecosystem down. Because she wasn't bluffing. She had files, she had footage, and, according to a recovered voice note, she had one final plan to go public. But someone got to her first. Agent Collins looked at the timeline. 3 suspects, 3 motives, but only 32 minutes in that hotel suite. And only one of them walked out wearing gloves. The room was silent. The crime scene sealed. And Madison's, Turner, was gone. But somewhere, her voice remained. As the CIA's digital forensics team combed through Madison's cloud archives, they recovered a partial sync from her encrypted backup account. At first it looked like nothing, just a list of renamed folders, timestamps, and fragments. Someone had tried to wipe it clean, but buried deep, beneath layers of scrambled file names and fake extensions, was an audio file. Auto-saved, auto-uploaded. It had no title, no metadata. Just a timestamp. 10:17 p.m., the night she died. Agent Collins hit play. Static. Then her voice, calm, measured, but trembling underneath. If you're hearing this, I didn't delete it. Check the campaign. Footage. The real footage. He thinks it's gone, but I copied it. I saw what he did. I have everything. And if anything happens to me, don't believe what they say. Silence. Then a breath. A whisper. This ends now. Agent Collins didn't flinch. But in the room, no one said a word. It wasn't just a note. It was a living piece of evidence. Madison knew she was being followed. She knew someone was trying to silence her. And she made a choice. To speak while she still could. The file was immediately forensically verified. No AI generation, no post-editing. This was her voice. Raw. Real. But what was this campaign footage she referred to? CIA analysts traced her final project. A brand video for Elixir Skincare. Shot over a weekend at a private estate owned by CEO Tyler Grant. The publicly released version showed perfect lighting, beach shots, health and beauty B-roll. But the private folder, buried in her encrypted cloud, was very different. The footage began with a makeup session, behind-the-scenes banter. Normal. But then, the camera kept rolling. In one clip, a young intern, 19, maybe 20, sits crying on the edge of a pool. Tyler Grant appears. He's drunk, slurring. He leans over her, grabs her wrist. Madison's voice is heard from off-screen. "I'm recording. Don't touch her." Tyler turns. "You think anyone's gonna believe you?" The clip cuts there. That was it. But it was enough. Enough to prove Madison had leverage. Enough to show Tyler Grant wasn't just a powerful CEO, he was dangerous. Enough to explain why someone was desperate to silence her. Agent Ramirez stared at the screen. "This wasn't about clout," she said quietly. She was trying to protect someone. The intern, unidentified at first, was later confirmed to be a college student who had never spoken out. She disappeared from social media weeks after the shoot, deleted her accounts, changed schools. Now, with Madison's footage recovered, she had grounds to come forward. And she would. But the CIA wasn't finished, because someone else had seen that footage, before the team ever found it. The file had been accessed remotely 2 days before Madison's death, through a VPN, encrypted. But the origin was eventually cracked. IP range, Manhattan, Upper East Side. Company, Elixir Skincare Corporate Office. Name on the admin login? T. Grant Elixir Brands. He knew. He watched it. He knew she had it. And he made a move. Madison's voice from that night would go on to become the centerpiece of a national investigation. It wasn't polished, it wasn't edited, but it was truth. And truth doesn't need good lighting to be powerful. She recorded it alone. She uploaded it in fear. And she left it, just in case. Agent Collins looked at the team. "She didn't die without a fight," he said. "She left the blueprint. Now it was their job to follow it." The CIA had a voice. They had a motive. They had a file that pointed to conspiracy. But what they didn't have, yet, was a face, a presence, someone who physically entered that room during the 32-minute window before Madison's death. Until they found the footage. It wasn't from the hotel's primary surveillance system, because that system had been wiped, and everyone knew it. No, this footage came from a secondary maintenance backup server, one almost no one knew existed, except the elevator repair crew. Tucked into a server rack, auto-syncing every 90 seconds, the system wasn't glamorous. No facial recognition, no angles optimized for beauty. Just raw video, real movement, untagged moments. Agent Collins cued the footage. Timestamp, 11:35 p.m. Elevator opens. A woman steps in, hoodie up, mask on, black gloves, duffel bag, no hesitation. She presses the button for floor 39. Doesn't look at the camera. 5 minutes later, 12:08 a.m., she's seen again. Same hoodie, same gloves. Only this time, the bag looks heavier, bulkier. She keeps her head down as she exits into the service corridor. Out of view in seconds. That was it. But it was enough. Because CIA analysts enhanced the frame, pixel by pixel, not to get her face. That was obscured. But the key detail? The zipper pull on her duffel bag. Custom made. A leather tab embossed with a single gold letter. M. CIA's pattern-matching AI pulled it in seconds. One result. A limited edition, designer bag, distributed only to 25 recipients as part of a luxury PR package. 3 years ago. One of those recipients? Melissa Crane, the cleaner. The woman behind the alias Grace Howard, the digital ghost who had cleaned up influencer scandals from LA to Miami and left no trace. But she made a mistake. Not on the scene. Not during the deletion. She slipped on the exit. Because that bag was a fingerprint. Not legal proof, but enough to get a warrant. Within hours, a CIA satellite pinged Melissa's current location. A cabin rental outside Tacoma, Washington. Off-grid. Private generator. No phone reception. Classic vanishing move. Agent Collins took a private team. No media. They approached just before dawn. Inside, they found Melissa alone. Packed. Ready to leave again. No makeup. No excuses. On the table sat the same designer bag. Still zipped. Still carrying the weight of everything she took from that hotel suite. And in that moment, she knew she was caught. She didn't reach for a lawyer. She didn't scream. She just sat down and asked, "Is it about the girl in New York?" They didn't answer. Melissa leaned back, quietly, carefully, and said 6 words Agent Collins would never forget. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She confessed to entering the suite, to confronting Madison, to demanding the footage, to grabbing the phone, to a physical push. She said Madison tripped, hit the floor, didn't move. "I thought she was faking at first," she said. "Then, I realized she wasn't." She wiped the scene, reset the phone, deleted the backups, at least the ones she knew about. And then she walked out, just like she'd done before. Only this time, she left a trace. Melissa Crane was arrested, on the spot for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and suspected manslaughter. Her prints matched to the wine glass. The elevator footage matched to her movement. And now, her confession, recorded and signed. But this wasn't over, because Melissa wasn't working alone. She never did. Agent Collins looked her in the eye. "Who paid you?" She didn't speak, but her hesitation said enough. Someone else, higher up, was behind this, and the CIA was getting closer. Melissa Crane was in custody. The woman in the hoodie had a name, a motive, and a confession. But to Agent Collins, she wasn't the end of the story. She was just the middle. Because if Melissa was the cleaner, someone else was holding the broom. The CIA needed proof. Not just a confession, a chain of command. That meant following the digital trail backward. To whoever orchestrated the deletion, timed the wipe, and pressed send on the lie the world was supposed to believe. They went back to Madison Turner's cloud history, the recovered audio, the hidden campaign footage. And one more thing, access logs. 2 days before her death, someone logged into her private backup server. Not from her IP, not even from her city. A masked connection, heavy encryption, but the signal bounced, just once, through an unsecured Wi-Fi network in Midtown Manhattan. CIA forensics caught the fingerprint. The connection routed back to an internal corporate IP block, belonging to a company named Elixir Skincare, specifically an administrative terminal in the 19th floor executive office. The user ID, T. Grant Elixir Brands, Tyler Grant, the man who Madison had threatened to expose. The man seen on tape slurring threats at a crying intern. The man who issued a statement of grief 17 minutes after her death. The CIA had seen it before. Clean suits, crafted PR, predators wrapped in prestige. Agent Collins issued the subpoena. Elixir's internal servers were seized. And what they found was damning. A folder labeled Reputation Risk, Influencer Assets held archived PDFs of influencer NDAs, legal threats, and monitoring logs. But the final nail? A draft email to Elixir's legal team from Tyler Grant, time-stamped 10:52 p.m., the night of Madison's death. Subject: urgent. Asset elimination. Footage must not surface. Secure NDA enforcement immediately. Use external protocol if necessary. External protocol. CIA dug deeper. Melissa Crane had been paid through a Delaware shell company. That company's payment records? Linked to a holding firm with a 42% stake, owned by Elixir's executive. Trust. It was a loop. A closed ecosystem of silence, threats, cleanups, deletion. But Madison didn't play by those rules. She had seen what he did. She had filmed it. And she had spoken. Before they could stop her. Now the truth was out. Tyler Grant was arrested outside his Upper East Side apartment in the early hours of a Tuesday morning, charged with obstruction of justice, conspiracy to destroy evidence, corporate witness suppression, and involvement in a premeditated digital cleanup tied to a wrongful death. He didn't resist, didn't speak, just looked down and adjusted his cufflinks. The story hit every headline. CEO indicted in influencer death cover-up. New federal laws under review. After CIA investigation. The Madison Turner tapes. Inside the scandal. That rocked social media. The intern on the video came forward, filed a civil suit, and told her story. More victims followed. And suddenly, Madison's voice was everywhere. Played in court. Quoted in editorials. Looped on TikTok like gospel. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say. Now the world believed her. And the people who tried to erase her? They were the ones being erased. They tried to call it a tragedy, a suicide. Another influencer lost to the pressure of perfection. But what Madison Turner left behind proved otherwise. She didn't just leave a photo. She left a trail. And that final post, the rooftop selfie, the wine, the smile, wasn't a goodbye. It was a warning, a message framed in pixels and shadow. Because the world didn't share that photo because it was pretty. They shared it because it was real. Because behind the pose, there was fear. Behind the lighting, there was courage. And behind her, there was a killer. Her image flooded timelines not as a memory, but as a rallying cry. Students reposted it with the hashtag #JusticeForMadison. Survivors of workplace harassment came forward. Young creators, once silenced by NDAs, used her story as armor. And the intern in Madison's footage? She got a lawyer. She got protection. And for the first time, she got heard. Congress took note. Within 30 days of the CIA's report, the Digital Witness Protection Bill was introduced. A proposed federally law to safeguard whistleblowers in influencer and gig industries, backed by both parties, fueled by one voice, Madison Turner's voice. The footage Madison hid? It became part of a national conversation. News networks played the clip. Journalists dissected every timestamp. But it wasn't the footage that hit the hardest. It was the audio, her words, her fear, her determination. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say. I saw what he did. I'm not afraid to speak. Millions listened, and something shifted. Agent Collins stood before the press the day after Tyler Grant was indicted. He didn't say much. Just one line. She didn't die in silence, and she didn't die for nothing. Madison's family created a foundation in her name to help women in digital media escape abusive contracts and environments. Within a week, over $2 million was raised. And as for Melissa Crane, she flipped, testified in full, and her testimony opened doors to two more unsolved influencer cases the CIA had quietly been watching. Because this wasn't just one takedown. This was the first crack in a wall that had silenced too many for too long. Madison Turner became something no one expected. A symbol, not of vanity or branding or filters, but of resistance. She didn't choose to be a martyr. She chose to speak. She chose to speak, and when they tried to erase her, she spoke louder. So the next time you scroll past another perfect post, pause. Look closer. Because sometimes it's not just content, it's a clue. And sometimes the quietest people leave the loudest legacies. The CIA closed the case, but Madison's photo will never be forgotten. Not for what it showed, but for what it revealed. Because her final post wasn't just a selfie. It was evidence.